All right. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Welcome to the Honest Hour. We have four honest people here, and we're going to talk about real estate. We'll jump into some numbers, but really talk about the stories that we see unfolding in the marketplace. And we're going to talk about who's here today. Tyson Kleen joining us from Langley, covers the Fraser Valley. We have Norm Hiller joining us from East Van, covers East Van, Vancouver, Burnaby. We have EJ Bugayong joining us from Richmond, covers Vancouver, Richmond, and other parts as well. And myself, Christian B, here in Burnaby, covering Burnaby, Vancouver, and other parts. Okay, guys, why don't we start it off with where we are in the marketplace right now. The real estate board came out last week with their January numbers. Sales numbers were up 34% January 2023 on 2022, though the comparison number there of last January was very, very low. In fact, we're still about 20% below where we normally are in January in terms of sales numbers, right? Sales numbers. Let me throw it to you. What are you seeing out there in terms of market activity at your open houses, or maybe just client interest from when you're talking to present or past clients? Tyson.
I'll start. Okay. Yeah, Fraser Valley, man, it's especially this week for us is really kicked off with the market's picked up with a vengeance. And so we're finding multiple offers hitting on places again, or places that sat for a long time. We're getting accepted offers on them. And just more and more activity. We've been doing a lot of client meetings, or just meetings about people who want to get into the market. And just even looking at it compared to last year, we're up probably 4 times the amount as far as client meetings and those kind of things. So I think the sentiment out on the ground is that people are feeling optimistic about real estate right now, that we're at the bottom, and so they're jumping into it. And we're seeing that. We've been predicting an early spring, and I think we're seeing it happen. So as far as seeing stuff over list price, I haven't seen it personally yet, but we're starting to hear about it happening.
Do you hear a lot of people complaining about mortgage rates?
Yeah, yeah, people definitely that's been affecting people as far as qualifying and being able to get into things. And um yeah, and so I think that's part of it for sure. But we'll see how that all flushes out as things go. And just people are still sitting out there. The buyers haven't disappeared the last 2 years. They've just been sitting on the sidelines and waiting, for either rates to come down, or sensing when there would be a bottom so they can jump in. And yeah.
Sure. Do you guys see that a lot? Do you think there's a lot of pent-up demand in the marketplace?
Absolutely. I find that the market really depends on what segment you're looking at. Some of them, they're going into multiple offers, but again, very rarely. And when it does, it's not necessarily going, way over. Those properties are probably, manipulated and priced really low in order to get that. I really don't see as much activity as I, was hoping for. Things have definitely picked up over November, December, but those are incredibly slow months. I do see some properties here and there just absolutely sitting there, and that's, if there's a few similar properties on the market, they're just sitting. Other properties like in the Fraser Valley, or, in
Mhm.
certain pockets where there's not a lot of options, those are selling very, very quickly. So I notice in Burnaby, quite a few of the townhomes, they're going pretty quick.
Yeah, we're still in a demand or a supply issue. I don't think there's nearly enough. And Christian, you might have the numbers in front of you, but from what I gather, supply is still relatively low compared to now the demand that's really picked up.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get there in a little bit, Tyson. EJ, how about for yourself? What are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Yeah, I think what you guys kind of mentioned in regards to the pent-up demand is kind of a big thing. I think a mortgage broker kind of mentioned it before. It was like, buyers don't really buy based on price. They buy based on their monthly payments on their mortgage. So with these interest rates so high, it's challenging for the average person to try to buy a place. So for myself, I've had a lot of conversations with you guys and some other realtors over there. And yeah, we feel like as soon as those rates start going down, I feel like a lot of people were going to start to get back into it just because of they're able to actually do something, right? And that may also be the same case for some sellers as well. I'm actually one of them as well who is looking at trying to make a move, but you know, I don't want to sell my place until there's something available for myself and my family. So if I'm already in that position, I can only imagine what, and my clients are in that position, I can only imagine what everybody else is kind of like. And that's the common theme that I've been noticing when I've been talking to a lot of realtors and what they're seeing with their clients.
Right, right. By the way, you got 3 realtors here, EJ. We're happy to come in, provide you with a market evaluation.
There
Just
you
gotta
go,
throw that
eh?
in there.
Three,
Never
three
too busy for
realtors to
your
call us.
referrals.
Yeah.
Coming in with a pitch.
Love it. Love
Anyway,
it.
I was gonna say, by the way, great audio there too. He sounds fantastic coming in there. Wow. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. I've had clients now, we're gonna get ready to list their townhouse in East Van, and they were kind of sitting on the market for a long time, and then now they're kind of ready to make the splash and jump in the pool and get moving with things. There's nothing really like having to sell your own place, eh? It really puts you in the shoes of the clients. You're like, oh yeah, it's a good reminder of the kind of the kitchen table conversations we need to have with our partner, right? When we're going over our finances, making sure we got enough to cover the mortgage and so on. Yeah, any other final thoughts on what you're seeing in the market right now?
One other thing that I kind of wanted to point out, and I think we had this conversation before in some of our meetings, is that the market's driven a lot by sentiment. So
Yeah.
when all of a sudden the news starts saying, oh, we're in multiple offers or it's starting to pick up, that's when we start to get a lot of our calls. But as soon as the news starts saying, oh, it's doom and gloom, the rates are up again, or it's going to be higher for longer, a lot of people are like, well, maybe I'll keep holding out and waiting, right? So, you know, we're starting to see a little bit of it with the interest rates supposedly coming down the second half of this year. And I have a feeling that as soon as that sentiment changes, a lot more people are going to start to be kind of coming back into the market, or our phones will start ringing a lot more.
Yeah, it's hard because we have clients messaging us asking about, hey, where do you think the market's going to go? What do you think it's going to do? And I feel like the narrative's changing every other week or every month. And like they said, CPI was higher than what they're projecting this last run when they released a report, which saying, hey, it might push back interest rate reductions like further down the line. And so that's the whole thing. And like what EJ was saying is FOMO. Once FOMO kicks in, where fear of missing out, and people are feeling like they're falling behind, which I'm starting to get that sense in a lot of my buyers who are going, we don't want to miss the bus on detached houses. Like we could see an opportunity here, so we want to get into it. And if we're already starting to hear that, we just know that's going to continue to cascade more and more and more. And then that's where the market really heats up and like EJ was saying, when the press starts picking up on it, that's when FOMO really kicks in. And yeah,
It's when the press starts picking up on it, it almost feels like it's too late because they seem to pick up on it sort of 6 weeks, 3 months after the fact, and they're reporting yesterday's news. Why don't more people go and buy in November and December? I always find you could really pick off a good listing, shave $50,000 off the price.
Yeah.
There's very few buyers to compete with. Why don't more people buy in November and December?
It makes absolutely no sense to me. I mean, there's people, I guess, are shopping thinking that they're getting some deals here and there, saving $500 on, Black Friday stuff. Meanwhile, they've missed out on $50,000. I have no idea. I push it all the time. I say November, December are the best months to buy. No pressure, but it's way better to do it then than doing it in February, March, April when it's the spring market. So I think right now we do have a huge supply issue, which doesn't make people jump up and down to purchase the properties if there's not, not a good layout available or not a good home available. But as you said, they're incredible months to buy.
Yeah, yeah. And the last November and December, of course, you know, there's still too much concern about interest rates being too high, market sentiment being down, and it just seems to be part of it's kind of wired into our human nature, isn't it? That we just can't run against the herd.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's emotion. It's a big emotional thing, right?
Mm.
Is people want to buy when things are feeling like they're on the upswing or whatnot, and also there's just so many different factors. It's lifestyle, like if your kids are in school and all these different factors that play into that. You don't want to uproot the family when kids are in the middle of their class and that kind of stuff too, or coming up to Christmas. So there's a lot of different kind of emotions that play into it. And I think people make decisions, at least here in our Western culture, make decisions more based off of emotion than they necessarily do always off of logic. As far as how does it make you feel, and I think that's yeah.
Sure. Gentlemen, moving along, let's talk a little bit about the high cost of mortgage payments for those homeowners whose mortgages are coming up for renewal. They're going to see their payments go up 30-40% if they got their mortgages in 2020, 2021, when rates were at around 2.5%. You see talk about it in the media that this is going to somehow cause a housing implosion, a crash. Prices are going to come down. I think these things are always a lot more overstated than what ends up turning out. Are you seeing any of this? Are you seeing more foreclosures out there? Just even when you're going through the MLS and Paragon, a website we realtors would use. Are you hearing any talk from clients who are feeling they're going to be forced to sell because they can't renew the mortgage when it comes up for renewal? I'll throw that one out to you.
I've seen a few foreclosures here and there, but again, not a huge amount. I'm talking a very a small handful that I've run into. And I always pull up the history to see, when did they purchase? Did they purchase 20 years ago? Did they purchase within the last 2 years and they can't make their payments? It's a huge mix. Not all of them bought in the last few years and just can't make their payments. Some of them have bought a while ago. So we don't really know why they're being foreclosed upon. I mean, obviously they're not making their payments, but some of these people who have equity in the home, they should be able to, in theory, refinance and make their payments. But there's probably some sort of story there. I've never been a big fan of them. I've represented the seller, the bank, and I've represented buyers. They're not as great of a deal as everybody thinks they are. Just because if you're getting a smoking good deal, lots of people show up in court. If you're the only one, well, maybe you didn't get as good enough of a deal to make it multiple offers in court. So I don't think it's a huge, thing that's up and coming right now. I don't see a lot of people calling me for foreclosure deals. I don't think we ever will have the American market like what we had in 2008, 2009,
Yeah.
where everybody's buying foreclosures. I don't think that's ever going to really happen here.
Yeah, the Canadian housing market is very resilient and very like the insolvency rates are very historically have always been very low, because I think Canadians have a different value that they place on real estate. They want to hold on to it. They'll sacrifice other things before they sacrifice their home and have to sell their home. And the other thing too is the laws are just set up differently here, where in America, if you default on your property, you can walk away from it and not have the accountability of having to pay the remainder of the balance. Where in Canada, you can't. If you're upside down your mortgage, you still have to make up that amount if you foreclose on a home. And so I think that makes people reconsider kind of what decisions they make and hold on to their housing as much as possible with that.
Sure. EJ, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I felt like I was getting more calls in regards to people's mortgage. Some of my clients' mortgages kind of going up around, say, late 2022 and maybe 2023, as every 6 weeks or so, bank kind of would raise interest rates, and people like, whoa, it's starting to come up. Like, what should I do, kind of thing. But one of the things that I heard through some mortgage brokers and was kind of circling around the internet a little bit is that the banks were actually allowing people who were in these distressed situations to extend their amortization. So they were still getting the payments in, but instead of like a 30 or 35-year mortgage, they were going up to like 40 or 45, just so they can make their payments as a temporary solution. So I think that was kind of as back in 2022, 2023, as the rates were kind of going up, a lot of people thought those foreclosures were going to be coming. But what happened was a lot of them reached out to their banks and just kind of let them know, hey, look at the situation I'm in. What can you do? And a lot of times the bank doesn't want to foreclose on you because it's more of a process for them to sell the place, and all of a sudden they're not getting that interest anymore. So it's actually in their best interest as a bank to kind of keep them and take that interest long term. So I don't see more foreclosures than I did basically at any other time. They're out there, but yeah, definitely not as many as a lot of people would have thought, basically.
Yeah. And I think the government also has around I think their latest budget update has put a lot of measures in to help people out in these distressed situations. I don't know if you guys know more about that or not, but like EJ, what you're saying is like allowing the banks to extend amortizations and those sort of things, because what is it's a law that you can only have an amortization of 30 years or less. But they're allowing now in distress situations to extend it, and other pieces of the government's put in so that people, if they're in a distressed situation, can work with options without the bank just foreclosing on them right away.
Tyson, I'm unfamiliar with that piece of news. Did they say they're open to expanding the amortization to 35 or 40 years?
I need to look it up again. I was looking into this about a month ago, and there was a number of different things that they'd put in to help out with housing, but it was all around the area of distressed, um, like people who are on the brink of foreclosing, so they didn't have to foreclose. So I can look that up and bring it up at another time, but I don't want to misquote it and all of a sudden get the
Sure.
wrong numbers and
Yeah.
people are like, sweet.
It would
Yeah,
make
so
life a lot easier if you had 40 and 45-year amortization periods, and it's been rumored that might be a plank in the Conservative Party platform federally for the next election, just to help lessen the payments for everybody. Sorry, EJ, go ahead.
yeah, I was saying I definitely I believe they don't advertise it where they're saying, okay, yeah, we'll increase your extend your amortization to 35 and 40 years. But in those kind of distressed situations, from my understanding, they allowed you to do that as a temporary solution while these rates are kind of high. So I don't think they'll be able to, upon renewal, if the rates are low, they're not going to allow you to do that again. That's what I'm guessing. But yeah, I definitely know some of my clients and some other buyers who were able to extend it temporarily just to get through this kind of situation. And then one other thing I kind of wanted to point out is that the market is very resilient and buyers are very resilient, but it's just a matter of how long these rates stay high for. So, people could be like, okay, I can pay this extra $1,000, $2,000 a month more, sometimes even higher based on your mortgage, but it's for how long? So, it really, if you kind of look at it, it hasn't been that long that these rates have been this high. So if for some reason the rates didn't come down fast enough, it's like, how long can buyers with their high mortgage keep it up, right?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, myself, I ran into a bit of a quicksand about a year ago at this time because we were on a variable rate with Scotia. And as you know, Scotia is the only one of the 5 banks where their variable rate is the monthly payment isn't fixed. So as they increase the interest rate, your payment goes up. And I was watching my payment going, whoa, it was up up a couple of $1,000s here. This isn't fun. And
Same.
so we, at that point in time, we explored some renegotiating options with Scotia. And then what we did is started talking to some of the different banks, and finally found one of the other banks, and just a very aggressive mortgage broker as well, who ended up taking our business to the other bank. Now, we paid a significant penalty, but we also got a significant cash back option from the bank getting our business. So it helped a lot. And I think just by making that change, I think at this point, we're probably saving at least $2,000 a month, every month on our mortgage, if not more. So people have options. If you're watching this, you've got options out there. Yeah. And by the way, Norm, you've represented someone for the bank in the foreclosure process. I think it's important for people to know it's not like these American TV shows, right? Where, you got a night, a beat up house somewhere in, Wichita, Kansas for $128,000. Like the foreclosure, and then the foreclosure process here is just a lot different. Do you want me to touch on that a little bit and how that works?
Yeah, so with a foreclosure, the beginning part of the sale is like any other sale. Buyer will come in, put an offer on the home. You can have your 7, 8, 10, 12 day subject removal period, whatever it may be. So you read the strata documents, you can do a home inspection, you can, do all your due diligence. Then you remove subjects and pay your deposit. It is still subject to court approval. So the seller, the bank, will send it to court, usually with minimum 3 weeks, very often 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. After that, you'll have a court date. The listing agent, in the meantime, will be advertising the sale price to anybody that inquires and says the court date is such and such a date. This is the sale price. So basically, the bidding starts from there. If you show up in court and you're the only one, you've got the property. So it will be sold to you if you're the original buyer. If you've gotten a smoking good deal, say if market value is about 600,000 and you got it for 485, you're going to get a whole bunch of people showing up in court. Any offer that comes in court has to be subject free and a bank draft attached. Otherwise, the judge won't even consider it. So the bidding opens up. He just opens up all the sealed envelopes. Everybody's put in their bid. It may be 2 offers, it may be 22 offers. The highest offer gets it. I have been representing a buyer before, and one of the offers that got it, the buyer's name was not on the contract. I stood up and said, Your Honor, I think we learned this in kindergarten. If your name is not on the test, it should be thrown out. And he says, you know what, good point. The buyers are still deciding whose name to put on it. He threw it out, took the next one, because it was only about $500 difference. And, if it were 5, 10, 20,000, he would have obviously taken the highest one. But he actually threw out that top offer, and the second buyers got it. We were not in the top 2. But yeah, the beginning portion of it is very similar to a regular sale. But after that, it's like a bidding process. That's a sealed bid envelope, and they all get opened up. Top offer gets it, but everything has to be subject free and a bank draft attached. So it can be a little bit more complex. For the listing side, it's very straightforward. Yeah, it's tiresome for buyers. You may show up 5, 6, 10 times to court, and you may be successful, you may not be.
Right. I think, and it's not I find I've done it once where I represented a buyer going to court, and he was a very even keeled engineer, but even for him, he found it very stressful. Very stressful, and we had to because I mean you can't guarantee anything, right? I mean, the seller who's being foreclosed on could pull the appliances out of the fridge. I mean, you just don't know. Pull the appliances out of the apartment. You just don't know what could happen with it. And he found it. We ended up getting it. We were one of 3 groups, and one of the other groups did not attach their bank draft to the offer, and it was automatically dismissed. We had ours ready, so we got it. But yeah, that's right. The judge doesn't mess around. You have one shot, and that's pretty much it.
And that's actually one good point that you brought up, Christian, is a lot of people misunderstand that and don't really realize the risk factor. You kind of should be paying yourself for that risk. If it's a tenanted occupied property, I mean, they're a little bit upset that they're moving, but it's probably going to be okay. If it's a vacant property, that's your best case scenario. As you see it, that's probably what you're going to get. But there's no recourse against the bank. It's sold as is, where is. So if the owner's really upset, if they lost their job, their spouse left them, they're losing their home, they're upset. They may punch a hole into every single wall. They may sell off the appliances. You get a very different home than when you see it. There is that chance. There's nothing you can do about it. You took that risk. that is your risk. That is now your home. So the minute the gavel hits the, the pad there on the table, you have the home, and you've bought it that way. So it is a
Oh
risky
man,
proposition.
imagine moving into one of those, eh? Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, sorry, I'd like to just add something in there. I was actually, before I was a realtor, I actually was purchased a foreclosure on my end over there as an investment property. And yeah, I found it very stressful. And one of the big things was, yeah, you don't know what you're going to get when it's time for possession. So when we got the keys and we opened the door, luckily everything was still there, but everything was still there. So all of the owner's stuff, everything that they didn't want, it was full. It was already full beforehand, so they probably took maybe, I don't know, a luggage, and everything else was there. The couch, the uh, old school TV stand, everything. So yeah, it's definitely, it's not for everybody. There's definitely some opportunity there, but there is a lot of risk. And honestly, oftentimes when I speak to my clients and talk about their risk tolerance, it's actually not even worth it. It's not even worth it because of I always kind of look at the worst case scenarios. It's just not worth it. Like, you can get possession there, and as Norm kind of mentioned, the water could be running, and all of a sudden, and they just left it on, and now it's on you because you just bought the foreclosure. So it's can be challenging. It could be a good opportunity, but yeah, sometimes it's just not worth the risk, I think.
And EJ, just as you said, what if the tenants are still there? I mean, it's your problem. You can't ask the bank to provide notice. You assume them, and if they turn into squatters, too bad. That's your problem.
Great. We had one last year where, no, 2 years ago, it wasn't exactly this situation. It wasn't a foreclosure, but the owner basically didn't want to leave. She didn't want to leave. Now, I think there was some mental instability issues there going on, but closing day comes around, and our lawyer, my client's lawyer, sends the file to a litigator, who sends a demand letter, couriers it to her house, and says, look, you got to be out of here and have signed the closing documents at your lawyer's office within the next 24 hours. Otherwise, you're going to be responsible not only for this home, but if our client has to buy a home $100,000 more expensive than this one, you're going to be on the hook for that too. She was moving at the end of the day. She was out of the place. But say to EJ's point, we inherited a condo full of stuff. And if you're ever there, the best answer is give it away for free on Craigslist. And my wife, she put it up on Craigslist. I'm telling you, the whole apartment was cleaned out in 3 hours. She just said, come and get it for free. Gone, the whole apartment, 3 hours. So
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
It's like a real episode of Storage Wars.
Yeah. Okay, gentlemen, we got about 5 minutes here. Norm, do you want to maybe talk us through buyer incentives? I know the governments at different levels have and are constantly introducing these different buyer incentive programs. I sometimes get lost amongst all of these. I think you know it better than I do, and so the resident expert on it. Take it away.
So the two that I'll mention, we've had the home buyer plan for quite a long time. That's where you can save up money into your RSPs. So you get your tax deduction, your money can grow, and when you're ready, you purchase your first time home, and you can save up to $35,000 for an individual or up to $70,000 for a couple into your home buyer's plan. That's in your RSPs. It's a good program. The main downfall is you have to remember every year you have to pay back a portion of it over the next 15 years. If not, well, it's not the end of the world, but that basically 1/15 of it or whatever gets added back to your income. So you'll get reassessed. You'll have to adjust your taxes. It's a bit of a headache. So that's the first one that we've had. We've had it for many, many, many years. It's a good program, but this new one, the First Home Savings Account, is way better, way better. So I have some notes on it here. The reason why it's so much better is it's kind of like a TFSA and an RSP all at once. So you can put up to $8,000 per year into your first home savings account. That money, if it grows from 8,000 to 10,000, that is like a TFSA. You don't pay taxes on your growth. So you get the income tax deduction. You also get the TFSA growth. So anything that grows in it is also tax-free. So it's a really good program. And the best part is you don't need to repay it. You can pull it out, use it for your home. You don't need to repay a portion of it. So you can put up to 8,000 per year in the account, and you can put up to $40,000 cumulatively into your account. So basically 8,000 a year for 5 years, you know, that's the room that you can put in there. I've been emailing and calling clients left, right, and center. Even if you don't have any money, open up the account. Why? Because you can carry forward up to that $8,000 for 1 year. So if you don't have any money this year, great, open up the account. Next year, you could do 8,000 times 2. You could do 16,000. But the carry forward contribution room only lasts for 1 year. So you can't save up for 5 years and dump in 40,000. That doesn't work. So the really good thing is you can, it's a RSP and TFSA all in one. So I really, really like the program. Let's just see if there's anything else that I missed about it.
No, that was excellent.
You have to be a Canadian citizen. You have to be minimum 18 years of age, and you do have to be a first-time home buyer. You can use both programs together, but I would highly urge people to use the first home savings account first.
Yes.
Maximize that one, then consider the home buyer's plan, which is just your RSP. I don't know of any situations where it would be opposite. I really think everybody should be doing the first home savings account first.
Just in the last 90 seconds we have here, do you see a lot of, I mean, going around quickly, do you see anybody using this? Do you see your clients using this program?
Yes. Sorry, that's all I have to say about it. You guys go.
The RSP one, definitely the home buyer plan. We're seeing clients using those because usually work will do a thing where they'll match 5% if you contribute 5%, and then they can pull some of that out. I haven't seen the first home savings account is relatively new, and so haven't seen a lot of people really using that quite yet.
EJ?
Yeah, definitely. Some clients are definitely kind of first-time home buyers are kind of getting into it. Some of the conversations I am having though is for people like, what money to invest? Like, how do I put extra money into it? My expenses are so high. So that's kind of one of the challenges where we live. But even if it's just a little bit at a time, every month, and it was automatically taken out of your account, it all kind of adds up, right?
Absolutely. Okay, guys, everyone, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.